Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning. Tonight's episode, like all episodes, brought to you by Roll20.net, the world's largest virtual tabletop. Check them out today at Roll20.net. We're on social media on Twitter and Facebook at SWGM Podcast. If you like what we do, want to support the show, join us on Patreon. Throw us a buck. It's patreon.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. We're on YouTube. Like, subscribe, watch, and share. YouTube.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. And the same moniker on iTunes. iTunes.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. And if you're watching the show tonight in the live stream, feel free to participate in the chat. We do bring those into the show. Tonight's topic, free for all. And here to discuss it, Chris, the Savage Bobby Fox.
Hello.
Dave, the rules, Maven Scott.
You know, I just love that we have now upgraded from like to Wyke.
And Dustin, the Savage Zealot Smith.
Here, the Lullapocalypse.
Hashtag no. Okay, so
hashtag lollies.
So we're talking about the ABC after school specials, right? Lolly,
Right.
lolly, get your adverts here?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're talking about?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the first thing I think of.
That's what I thought we were talking about.
Of course, I'm old, so.
Instantly demonetized.
We'll miss you, money.
Disavow.
No, he's not on the show tonight.
So, free for all. Let's start with Muzzy. Goddamn shit stirring.
What's he saying?
What? Because there's some announcement all over. In case you haven't been on the Google Plus community yet, some of these leaked a little bit about Black from a personal post from private Facebook. But it's going to be a $30 print instead of a $10, the standard $10. And Alec wanted to know what we thought of that. I think it's great.
I do too. You can't, I'm sorry, but it's, we're spoiled. And it's time to get over being spoiled. It's on par and maybe a little bit cheaper than other role-playing books. They don't put out 25 books like other companies. So get over it, pay a little bit more. It's a game you love. You're going to play it. If you don't want to pay that, then wait and see how much the PDF is. But, Pinnacle's running a business. I know people say this all the time, and people get mad when you say, hey, they got to make money. But, they do. Plain and simple.
If they can't turn the lights on, we're not getting another version, guys. But in all seriousness, the core set of books for the game that shall not be named is what, $225 after you buy all of them, just for the core set. $75 a piece for 3 books, and that's just like the bare minimum you have to play the game.
Well, look what Fantasy Flight's done with with Star Wars.
Oh God, yeah. I mean
core rule books. Rule books. They put out a beta that you pay full price for, and then they put out the core rule book, which is the exact same that you pay the full price for. Then they put out the second of the 3 books. That's 90% of the same shit that was in the first book that you pay full price for. I mean, come on.
Well, not to mention, they've been very clear up front that if all you want to do is keep your current existing book, they will release the free thing that you get to go out and download that gives you all the differences between the two. So if you already have the book, the $30 price doesn't affect you at all unless you just want a bright, shiny new book with everything in the binding without having to reference a guide. I mean, to a certain extent, they're giving you this upgraded edition for free if you already own the PDF. That's probably one of the single biggest things that shows Peg's not out there to milk their fan base. They honestly want to make sure you're just playing the best version of the game.
Well, let's put it this way too. It's Savage Worlds is no longer an indie game,
right?
I mean, come on. It's sales alone, what I heard figures at one point in time that sales second most popular next to or third most popular next to Pathfinder and DVD.
On
you have to be careful. That's Fantasy Grounds, where Smiteworks did the aggregation. No one else is doing like a across the hobby aggregation. So that's specifically the people who've gone out and bought Fantasy Grounds. The second most played game on their software is Savage Worlds.
Right. Well, I'm just saying at this point, Savage Worlds doesn't need to break into the industry by offering a $10 core book.
what we've got going on with Savage Worlds, and 5e and with Pathfinder is right now 5e is just murdering everybody. They are like a juggernaut that's just steamrolling, and then Pathfinder is sort of like the smaller juggernaut that looks a lot like the bigger juggernauts, 3rd edition, brother. And then Savage Worlds is in there, but think about it. We've got the license for Flash Gordon. We got the license for Rifts. Thank you, Palladium. Thank you. Like, really, it's a fun game. Thank you for going to Savage Worlds with it. It's really got to that point where there are a lot of other indie companies and other properties. Six Gun comes to mind, The Goon, Fear Agent. These are like well-known, established IPs that are working with Savage Worlds. So I'm thinking, we are like the system is stepping up. So it makes sense that they're going to have to, if they're going to like keep up with the products that they're putting out, they're going to have to kind of increase the price to match, and then put out really good, high quality products.
Well, I'm going to add this to the pot too. So if I pay $20 more for the core rule book to support Peg than I would normally for a core rule book, that means more money in Peg's pocket to produce more settings that I'll end up buying again anyway. Mm-hmm. So I don't. And come on, here's just what I want to say. Listen, I got a family of 4. I'm not getting out of the Taco Bell drive-thru for less than $40. Why would I complain about a $30 book?
Well, so another way to look at this too is just if you've been watching Peg as an entity at all over the last few years, not that long ago, Peg was Shane, Clint, and Jody's passion project. They were quite literally the shoestring budget indie developer that was swinging way outside their weight class.
Right.
And then they've been bringing people internal to the company over the last few years. One of the first licensees we see that released not a official licensed product, but an official product was Ed Wetterman with ETU. That wasn't a licensed setting. That was an official Peg setting when it came out. Rifts, they brought Sean Patrick Fannin internally to do Rifts. Now, regardless of your opinions, that's still another paycheck that has to be paid. It's another place that those funds have to go. The company has to make enough money to pay these people to keep releasing these great products. At the end of the day, the licensees are great. I nothing against them. We've got our license. Chris has got his license. The licensees are going to continue to pump more lifeblood into the lines. But if Peg dries up, so do the licensees.
Yeah,
exactly.
Your train car is being dragged by the Peg engine. We all have to pay it forward to keep that thing going so that we can all keep doing, great and wonderful fucking things with our games.
Right. And it's really just an updated edition. Like it was said before, they're going to allow the errata to come out. I think that's great. I mean, you don't see companies do that. I can't think of a single other company that is willing to do that. That's one of the things about Peg that actually gets more of my loyalty, is that they want their fans to enjoy the game, and they're not just milking us.
Well, and one thing to kind of piggyback in on that I would say with this is that, and freaking thought is gone. Don't get old, y'all.
Yeah. So, I mean, my plan already is I will be buying a hardcover and a soft cover of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most likely the hardcover will be the one that I'm going to, get signed and do all that stuff with. And then the soft cover will be my one that I use in games.
Well, and I just think I just hope nobody in the community has this perception that it's a greed or a money grab. I don't feel that way about it at all. It's fair market value, even at $30 compared to other books in the hobby and in the market and the space. It's still a bargain.
You know what else I heard?
Universal role-playing game rule set.
I heard something too that if you want to flip the coin on this a little bit, I was listening to another podcast, and I apologize, I don't remember who said it, but they said that they thought that because it was a $10 rule book, some people would look at that and go, "Oh, that can't be good. That can't be high quality. That can't be a quality game. It's only a $10 rule book." So you have that whole flip side there of perception of people
Perceived value.
Think that perceived value is not what they want because it's only $10. And and this might flip some of that. So yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I really don't.
So finally, the brain kicked into gear. The other thing to remember too is Peg has a very staunch stance. There are not editions of Savage Worlds. You don't have, like we all talk about, there's the deluxe edition, the deluxe explorers edition, the old passport edition. We all have terms that we bandy about within the community to refer to what version of the book you're reading the rule from. Peg doesn't believe in that shit. There's Savage Worlds. And
core rules.
It's not core rules, it's Savage Worlds. If it's in a companion, it's Savage Worlds. If it's in the deluxe book, it's Savage Worlds. If it's in one of the official license or the official products, not necessarily the licensed products, but the official products, it's Savage Worlds. It's all just Savage Worlds. So you're not getting a new edition of the game. You're getting the latest and greatest revision of the game. So this isn't, oh, well, the old one's going to be $10 and the new one's going to be $30. No. Savage Worlds is now going to be $30. You just happen to be getting the latest and greatest version.
Yep.
And on top of that, as Chris said earlier, they haven't released what the official price point's going to be for the PDF. Shane's been very clear in the couple of posts he's made about this, that on Facebook, they don't have that price point to tell us yet.
Right.
That's a decision that they're still making that'll probably come out about the same time the Kickstarter launches.
Yeah, I bet you may know that during the Kickstarter.
I would not be surprised if there's a digital tier to the Kickstarter.
Oh yeah, I bet you there will be.
They know that they've got a large fan base that does things exclusively through PDF and things like Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, Tabletop Simulator, etc.
So let's hit up Ruben's topic. So Ruben Riviera writes, something I get asked by non-savages and wanted everyone's opinion. Some systems have item qualities, say crude to masterwork. You mean the system that shall not be named has item qualities? If you went through the effort, how would the cast handle that?
Pluses.
Can I start?
Plus one.
Yeah, +1, +2, -1, -2.
I mean, it's already done.
Yeah, Deadlands Reloaded.
Deadlands included El Cheapo
gear. Yep.
We don't need to come up with it, guys. Peg did in a product. It's Savage Worlds.
Yeah, you use El Cheapo gear, isn't it? If you roll a 1 on your skill die, no matter what your wild die is, something happens, it breaks, your horse dies.
Yeah, the horse even had, I think the horse had a table of drawbacks that it has.
Yep.
It's lame, or it only eats cud, or it needs to get laid every Thursday.
I had a character in a Deadlands game who had a swayback lame horse.
Yeah.
It was awesome because it just slowed everybody down, and just think that whole sway back thing. It was great, and all the other players used to give him shit about his horse.
Well, the one thing I love about the El Cheapo gear from Deadlands is when you buy El Cheapo clothing, it actually gives you a -1 charisma.
Yeah,
because you look dirty and rowdy and put together.
It's got holes in it. And, yeah, it looks like shit.
Worn or faded or whatnot. Yeah, I mean the quality of stuff already exists in Savage Worlds. Now, one of the places I see a lot of people, comment is things like, well, a shotgun is a shotgun is a shotgun. Yeah, and I mean, obviously you have the different, guns that get laid out in the book, but does it really matter if you're shooting a slug or a load of rock salt or whatnot? In mechanical terms, it's still a shotgun. It still has the same cumulative effect. And I think we need to, as a group, we need to stop thinking that, oh, well, this gun is so much better made that it does more damage.
Nope.
No. There's
damage
really no
random.
such thing.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's always crappy about this conversation, too. Okay, so I hit you with a masterwork weapon. It does what? +1 damage. If I want to say it's a masterwork weapon, great. It's still random. So who cares?
I think that's one of the issues, though. When I played with another group, everything, like, they would literally sit there, and we had human calculators at that table, and they would go through and crunch the numbers to where they would just become unbeatable. Like, it didn't matter what they were going up against. They were unbeatable. And
I assume you're still talking about Cult Finder.
I am still talking about Cult Finder, yes.
So to a certain extent, they have to be. I mean, let's be brutally honest. If I'm going to run a game and I'm putting you up against a dragon, in Cult Finder, if I want to make this dragon more difficult, I give it more hit points and I have it cause more damage. Maybe I give it some additional bonuses to hit you. Maybe I require you to have a larger weapon for your damage to even count against it. So they have to have those bonuses built into that system. In Savage Worlds, if I want to make the dragon a little harder, I simply narrate that the motherfucker floats 50 feet in the air the entire... you gonna do?
Right. Yeah, there's just I'm at a loss for words a little bit foot and mouth. I don't understand. Well, I do understand the mentality. I just wish people would get over it. I want to experience this thing called Savage Worlds, but I want to experience I want to experience through my lens and my experience of D&D or Pathfinder. Because it's a role-playing game. Therefore, it has to be like the granddaddy of role-playing games. No, stop it. This is the same asshole who goes abroad and complains there's not a McDonald's on every corner. Try the local cuisine.
It's a Royale with cheese.
It's like, I'm in Mexico. Where's Taco Bell? What? You're in Mexico. Have actual Mexican food. No.
Wait. What do you say? Taco Bell's not actual Mexican food? Is that what you're... Mind blown.
No.
Mind blown is... I can't believe you're telling me that.
That's called anti-hangover medication.
Greatest video you'll ever watch on YouTube. You can absolutely search for this. Is Mexicans eating Taco Bell and their reaction. And the best part is when they get these two little old grannies who go, flour tortilla.
Yeah, I watched that. That was pretty damn funny. Yeah. Yeah, you could tell like that was not one of those people thought that was anything close to Mexican food.
Well, even a better example, fast food restaurants. We're on the topic, right? So let's say I'm a dyed-in-the-wool McDonald's guy, and I'm gonna walk into a Taco Bell and demand a double cheeseburger. I ain't getting it. Mm-hmm. It's not on the menu. It's not my job to sit there, jump up and down, and demand a double cheeseburger. It's my job to go, well, let me try what you have on the menu. Same thing with this game and coming from Pathfinder. You can tell your players, get rid of all that idea. Forget all that shit. This is a completely different game. Oh, so edges are like feats. No, they are not, because this is not class-based. Oh, so bennies are like hit points. No, they are not. They're called bennies. They have their own mechanic. Stop trying to compare Savage Worlds to D&D. Please. They're
The
not
best
the same
thing
thing.
I have found, if you're dealing with people who are so locked in that mindset, take the rules away from them. Play the game where 100% of rules decisions are up to the GM, and the player is required only to narrate in character what their character does. So they have to say things like, I run up to the orc and I take a slash at him with my sword while kicking sand in his eyes. And then you're left to determine that that's a wild attack after an agility trick or a smarts trick. Take all of that weight off the players and let them experience a playthrough of the game without the rules. And it will clear up 95%, because at that point, they're not trying to find a corollary to the rule. They suddenly realize, oh, I can do that. I can try to do X and get away with it. I'm not being stopped by what's on my character sheet, or I'm not being limited by some thing that's imposed on me because of the class I chose at character creation. If you take all the rules away from the players and just let them play as if they didn't have anything in front of them, and you tell them what to roll, you keep all their stats and everything, you can absolutely break that mindset. And it doesn't matter what gaming system it is. You can do this with from Pathfinder to Savage Worlds. You can do it from Savage Worlds to Pathfinder. You absolutely can take a player who describes all their actions as if they were taking action in a Savage Worlds game and move them to Pathfinder by simply putting the narration on their shoulders, and as the GM taking all the responsibility for adjudicating the rules.
Right. And I if you have that kind of player, you're dealing with that kind, struggling with that, start calling for skill checks they don't have on their sheet.
Right.
Just to watch them go, well, I don't have persuasion. That's okay. You can try it. You can try anything. Get a D4, roll a wild die with it, subtract 2. Go. You don't have to have the skill to attempt it. This isn't Cult Finder.
Right.
You can do things that are not on your character sheet.
It will blow your mind, but it is possible.
And then especially when they succeed with multiple raises on something they have no skill in, just watching the look on their face of what the fuck just happened. Holy shit.
And I know this has been talked about before, and I don't remember what you guys' opinions were on it. But, a lot of people have said in the past, don't start with fantasy for Savage Worlds. Start with something else just because it gets them out of that fantasy mindset. I don't know.
I disagree.
I don't know. I think if they're a role player, they're going to be in that mindset of whatever game they've played anyway, and still, like David said, trying to make those correlations. So I don't know. I mean, I've run fantasy a few times, and I've just had to say to people, nope, that's not how it works.
Well, when I first started giving advice of that kind, I went with the heavy, don't play what you just came from. So if you came from D&D, don't play fantasy. If you came from cyberpunk, don't play sci-fi. Flip the script on them so that you break them out of that mold. Honestly, I don't think it works, because in the experiences I've had since then, what I'm seeing is if you don't let people play what they're going to have fun with, they're not having fun at the table. Therefore, they blame it on the system because that's the new thing.
Yep.
Even though in all reality, what's making them not have fun is the fact that you're not playing in the world they want to play in. If I come to you and I really, really, really want to do a superhero game, and you pitch me, well, fine, I will run a superhero game. And then when we start playing, it's actually a dramedy about a bunch of high school students who are getting into these wild and crazy situations. They happen to have powers, but they really don't come into play much. I'm just not going to have fun. And it doesn't matter if we're playing that in Fate or Savage Worlds or even some, Roll20 Modern. Doesn't matter, because as soon as you've broken that social contract of doing what the players find interesting, they're just not going to find it interesting.
Yep.
Well, I've never agreed. I don't agree with the break from fantasy thing to begin with. For a lot of the same two reasons, actually. Number one, for everything Dave just said, completely agree with. If your players are hard, dyed-in-the-wool D&D players, they enjoy playing fantasy, and they want to try Savage Worlds, don't force them to play some other genre that they're not interested in.
Right.
Because right there, they're not going to have fun automatically. If they showed up expecting to play medieval fantasy, traditional Western fantasy role-playing game, and they're playing pulp, forget about it. Secondly, as a GM, so I think a lot of this advice about switch to something else is a little bit of GM. I don't want to use the word cowardice. That's not right. Uncertainty in your own GM skills. So if you want to go, hey, I want to play a gnome bard. Great. Oh shit, where's gnome bard in Savage Worlds? Oh fuck, where's gnome bard in Savage Worlds? I think that's where the advice comes from, because there is no gnome bard in Savage Worlds other than, sure, there's a race creation. A bard, sure, will give you powers, but they're all trapped by music. Blah blah blah. If you're familiar enough with the system, you can pull off anything that D&D can do, and more.
And quicker.
And faster. And if you don't believe that, we have a little experiment called Rise of the Rune Lords on the YouTube channel, a series of playlists where we took the Rise of the Rune Lords campaign, we're scene by scene, story for story. The only thing that changed was we ran it with Savage Worlds.
Jesse, and I for the life of me can't remember his last name, had even said at the end of that,
Davis.
People who played that with Savage Worlds would have gotten their what Adventurers League or whatever credit for their characters. That had gotten their items or XP, etc., to carry over to a Pathfinder character going forward, because it met the requirements within their organized play rules, even though we played it in Savage Worlds.
It had the right. Well, I had to watch it. That was before my time, but it had the right flavor to it. Like, it had the right feel. He said it was my take.
Here's the thing with that, right? In adapting it, it's not that hard to adapt it if you understand Savage Worlds. Like, okay, here's the one thing. Are we going to have Vancian magic for the wizard? No. Here's why. Because it doesn't exist in fucking Savage Worlds. Now, are we playing D&D or are we playing Savage Worlds? Well, we're playing Savage Worlds. We just happen to be using the fluff and story seeds from a D&D or a Pathfinder campaign, actually. So, but my Vancian magic, fuck you and your Vancian magic. This is Savage Worlds. It doesn't use Vancian magic.
So, to be fair, you could write a Vancian magic arcane background.
You can, but god damn it.
And it's been done a few years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's been done to death. There's actually more versions of that you can check a stick at that are out there on, I want to say they're on the Savage Wiki, but I know Richard Woolcock has probably released the one that gets talked about the most.
Yeah.
We've released a version that, we've referenced a few times. I mean, it can be done. It's less about, can the mechanics in Savage Worlds do these things, and more about, does the story and the game you're trying to play require it? And if it doesn't require it, chuck it the fuck out. Yep. But not to get drawn into that particular.
So, hey, Dave.
Well, I would say this PowerPoints are Vancian magic.
It's already in the Fantasy Companion. The arcane background Alchemist works exactly like Vancian magic. It's just your spell slots are potion. If you drop the whole concept of potions and just consider those as your spell slots, there's your Vancian magic right out of Peg's own house.
All right, goddamn it, I'm jumping in, Dave. Okay.
Hold on. Because Chris has been trying to get a word in edgewise to ask a question.
No, never mind. I was going to make a dumb plug, but
okay, I see what you're saying.
I'm going to make a dumb plug. Hey, David, is the Savage Wiki, the savagepedia.com, brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Savages and our great donors?
I believe it is, Chris.
Excellent.
It is.
Was it also once known as Savage Heroes?
No, that's a different. Actually, Savage Heroes is different.
Okay.
It's always been Savagepedia.
All right. So
yeah,
if you absolutely must have Vancian magic in your Savage Worlds game, there's no need to do anything other than require. You don't need to come up with a special arcane background. You just simply require your players to spend their power points in advance. Done. That's it. Done. No special arcane background needed. Your power points refresh once every 24 hours. Instead of once an hour, here's your power points. Pre-spend them for the day. Oh, and you don't get cantrips. Fuck you.
So I'm trying to look back here in chat. Art Fernandez brought up the idea of when you introduce the player to, calling for a skill roll that they don't have in their sheet, and they then ask, well, do I have that skill now? No, they don't. It doesn't work that way. And you knew this when you asked the question, Art, but the interesting thing is I have never had a player think that. I haven't never once had a player think, oh, well, I succeeded at a thing, therefore I must be better at the thing.
You'll actually run into that if you roll with Call of Cthulhu players, because BRP actually has a mechanic that if you succeed enough times, you'll get like a basic level skill in it. You won't be good, but you'll be able to do it.
Yeah, but I've never seen one of the people that come from a system like that expect it to happen in another system.
Right.
I've seen this happen multiple times. Experienced players going, hey, give me this roll. I don't have that. That's fine. Unskilled, go ahead. Oh, right. That's right. We have unskilled games in this. Okay, right. Sorry. So you'll get that from experienced players like, oh, I don't have notice on my sheet. That's okay. Go ahead and give me an unskilled notice check.
No. You know what you'll get from experienced players? Is I don't have notice on my sheet and I'm not taking it.
Right.
the people who've realized, wait a minute, everyone in the party doesn't need lock picking. Everyone in the party doesn't need notice. Everyone in the party doesn't need persuasion.
Unless you're playing in a con game, and then everybody has to have notice, because the first thing that happens when the players sit down, this guy doesn't have notice. Why didn't you give him notice?
Are you kidding me? The first thing that happens in playtesting, when you send out documents to people and go, hey, could you take a look at this product and these characters? The very first piece of feedback you're going to get, why don't the characters have notice?
Right.
Because, God damn it.
Not everybody needs it. It's supposed to be a skill. So you could argue that if it's a skill that you learn, it should fit your character concept. And unless you're a journalist or a detective, fuck off. You don't have notice.
It's specifically, I think like that people get hung up on the word. They think it's just like visually being able to see things. And even like, I feel like some designers get that in their idea. But notice to actually be able to pick out intricate details and link them to evidence.
Well, it's the same thing. I've been binge watching a little bit of Critical Role from YouTube recently. They did a charity blood dry muscular dystrophy session where they played Deadlands Reloaded, and I kept watching and just oh god, and I understand why, because you're D&D. Give me an investigation roll. No, bitch, notice, not investigation. No, notice. So yeah, it happens.
I'm going to throw him fully under the bus because it's become a running gag for their show. Over on the Wild Die podcast a few weeks back, they called it their dramatic cake episode, where they did a thing on showing off a dramatic task. Gary, during that, calls for an investigation roll for them to look through the cupboard and find the particular thing they're looking for. And every other person on the podcast went, you mean a notice roll? Yep. Experienced Savage Worlds players and podcasters make that mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think it might have been like, give me an investigation roll to look up the recipe. I got you, Gary.
Yeah, I wish that's what it was, but it really wasn't.
So let's tackle this one. What IP do we think as hosts would make the perfect Savage World setting, and why?
That was from Claudio Henrique. I don't.
First of all, there's no such thing. That's Bigfoot riding a unicorn. It doesn't exist in nature as far as the perfect IP. What IP would I like to see brought? Let's rephrase that. What IP do you guys think would do well brought to Savage Worlds? For example, Rift.
Right now,
example of a perfect IP fit.
Right now, I'm thinking of Bigfoots and unicorns. I'm sorry, Jared. When you strike gold, you strike gold.
Well, we're talking about an existing IP, right? So, My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic.
Okay, and Harry and the Hendersons, we can work this.
It's Harry and the Hendersons meets My Little Pony, the setting.
Harry Little Ponies?
Okay, we are getting right. That
somehow sounds dirty.
Why do we always go back to this?
No, they're like Shetland ponies. Come on, geez, people.
The best part
gonna do it
that fast. It sounds like you said Shetland ponies.
Yeah, Shitless
ponies.
Shitless
ponies.
Yeah, hairy little ponies from the land of Shitland.
Okay, Thundercats.
We need to wave off.
Jesus Christ! If we're not careful, Dustin's gonna end up writing another new setting.
Well, hey,
it started.
You mentioned that we have a license now, so I'm gonna be writing these down.
All right. Hey, I don't approve of it, but I want at least 3% off of the residual gross.
All right. A show that I think would fit good in Savage Worlds, and I can't say that I've watched many episodes of it. I've seen a lot of freaking commercials, but Into the Badlands could probably make a pretty cool Savage Worlds game. Lots of intrigue, political intrigue, martial arts, lots of.
You could do it.
You would think that? I don't think it would be a very. I understand where you're coming from.
Do it. But I would want a system that allowed the players to divest themselves a little more strategically in the different fighting styles, especially when you get into like season 2 of that, where you start getting like this master leads all of his guys in this fighting style, while this other one's completely different. And, it gets a lot more into the different like fight styles, and everybody's got a certain culture. I think that while you can absolutely do that with Savage Worlds, but the whole fighting is fighting thing kind of undermines that on being an interesting mechanical mix.
Not only that, there's not really enough of a social machinations mechanic existing in Savage Worlds to kind of pull, in my opinion, to pull off a lot of the social structure of the individual. It's not
fine. So just shit on my idea.
Yeah.
Okay, you three spit something out that's not shitless ponies.
Thundercats.
Yeah.
So I mean, first of all, I think the simplest answer for what is the perfect match is the 1980s entire Saturday morning cartoon lineup.
Right.
I mean, you look at Freedom Force from Patrick Fannin is absolutely like nailing that to the wall in spades right now. And you have to stop and think, and this goes way beyond just the rules work well for it. The fucking fan base is 35 to 45 years old. They all grew the fuck up watching those cartoons. 2, those cartoons fit perfect with the fast and loose. You hit with a gun by rolling shooting, and everybody's got blue lasers or red lasers. Right. It's the real fast and loose kind of thing that goes there. That is a perfect mix. On a more serious note, outside of that, I would say there's so much you can do with Savage Worlds. It's hard to find that one that's a perfect match. I think one that could be done in Savage Worlds that really hasn't been done well elsewhere is more getting out of the film genres, getting out of popular fiction, and launching into some of like the ancient storytelling stuff where you get some of the myths of old. Olympus Inc. tried to do this by bringing the gods, the old like mythological stories to the modern
That's a great
era.
book series.
That is, those are some great ideas. And even if you didn't try to transpose it into the modern era, like Percy Jackson series or whatnot that did it. But even if you just went and said, well, what we're going to do, we're going to capture the old Nordic tales of all of the Norse gods and the mythology that's there, and then just capture that in an actual world that's set up exactly to be what the old Norse myths were. So you capture, ye old England with the Norse gods and all that. If you did some things along those lines, I think Savage Worlds gives you every tool necessary to do it, and no one's doing it. Unfortunately, I also think it's too niche. I don't think you'd have an audience.
Here's the license I would like to see Savage Worlds get in regard to this. Harry Potter.
Yeah,
I think the film series has petered out enough where the kids are too old for anybody to buy into it any longer. The book series is still up and running. It works for Savage Worlds would work incredibly well for running adventures in Hogwarts with the mythical creatures from the bestiary, the magic system as a power system with wands. I think Harry Potter would be an awesome IP for Savage Worlds.
I gotta tell you, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was the best Doctor Who movie I've ever seen. One of the ones that came up in chat is Riverdale, and if we're talking about the CW, yeah, Deadlands Noir. It's literally just a mystery show. Everybody has the young hindrance, and some of them have the stupid hindrance as well.
I'll do you one better.
ETU.
It's ETU.
Yeah, it's ETU.
Better. It's ETU.
ETU in high school.
Right.
So another angle to take this at, though, would be if you can wrap your head around this idea of everything with a twist that was the original kind of crux behind what it took to kind of get approved for a license. Like you had to do, well, we're going to do the Old West with a twist. Right. I think it would be interesting to see someone tackle steampunk in the traditional Victorian age steampunk and then shift it and bring it across the Atlantic and talk about like what would have happened had all those steampunk gadgets existed during the Civil War. You take that classic steampunk and then shift it to the Americas. I know
Steamscapes kind of did that, didn't they?
Right.
I thought they went specifically
Asia.
Asia was this. You got Steamscapes Asia, but you also had more the
England,
European and stories.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I didn't think they brought that over to the U.S.
Deadlands kind of does it though, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Deadlands kind of does the steampunk thing you're talking about, though, Dave.
Rippers is more horror than steampunk, but there's some
my problem with Deadlands is steampunk is all hidden behind Ghost Rock. It's not steampunk.
Okay, I'll give you that.
It's Ghost Rock, and to me, it is different as soon as you start renaming some stuff and you move it away from like steampunk was always like it's just steam power. But it does this fantastical bougie boo that ends up with a mind control device.
Right. So, Hope and Glory just came out, which is steampunk, but it's a much different take on steampunk. It's actually sort of Arctic post-apocalypse, and you get this merger of the British and Indian culture. I haven't picked it up yet because I'm just waiting for the price to drop, but it does look to be pretty cool.
I'm going to throw it out here again. Star Trek. I think there should be a Star Trek setting for Savage Worlds.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of fans out there looking for a good Star Trek role-playing game that are tired of making their own.
Yeah. Well, and Star Trek, regardless of whether you're a fan of the original series or the Next Generation or any of the other iterations of the universe, it's still very much Savage Worlds core. You wouldn't have to really change a whole lot. You don't need a whole lot from the science fiction companion, really, because it's Star Trek's never been about science. It's about technobabble, trappings. Right. Oh yeah, no, the antimatter core containment field quantum signature thingy. Okay. And it's got that Wild West shoot 'em out kind of thing in its heart and soul still. It's got a lot of pulp in it. No matter what version of Star Trek you're watching, I'm sorry, there's a lot of pulp in it.
Some pulp in my sci-fi.
I'm going to fucking hate myself for saying this. I know I've said it on the show before, but
peanut butter.
If you really want a perfect, like, take a TV show and take it directly into Savage Worlds,
Gunsmoke.
There really isn't a better one than South Park.
Yeah.
South Park.
I mean, it's about the imagination of children, allowing them to do fantastical shit. All of a sudden, I've got the power to take away your powers because I say I do. Like, that's totally in the realm of trappings. And okay, well, what do I have to roll to beat him in a social conflict that I take away his powers for the rest of the day?
All right, enough of that topic.
Okay, let's take a look.
Next.
Widening Guire, Star Trek. If you want Star Trek, talk to Dustin.
Yeah, Dustin Hatchett. Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman?
No, I know a Dustin who does a ton of Star Trek stuff. But there's a new Star Trek role-playing game out. That's what
Modifius.
Yeah, that's what his group's playing right now, my buddy Dustin.
Oh, yeah, cool. That's what they're talking about. I had a moment.
It's what it's called, Star Trek Warp or something like that. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's from Modifius.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what it's called.
So, Modifius has what is it? Mutant Chronicles. Are you guys familiar with the old school Mutant Chronicles?
No.
All right. So they had like setting books. And they had like a whole library. It would be like this big chunk. But like 3rd edition for Savage Worlds, it's pretty big. It's robust, but it's definitely not as huge. And I feel like the reason for that is that they managed to cut out a lot of the things that they just didn't need. But that would be a setting that a lot of like Savage Worlds players might want to look into because it covers a lot of the diesel punk. It covers a lot of the horror. It's got some cool stuff.
Right. They should just Netflix original series Bright. Considering how much clamor there was in the community over that when it came out. Like, oh my god, this would be the perfect Savage Worlds adventure.
Yeah, but then you have to go and actually get the license rights from Netflix. And I don't even want to think about
Are you sure?
nightmare that would be.
Are you sure? I mean, it might be easy, according to South Park, if it's easy to get shows greenlit.
Hello, Netflix, you greenlit. Oh man, everybody's trying to do shared universes. Even the kids at South Park were trying to do a shared universe. Crazy. That would probably be the one, is if you could do like Rippers, Weird Wars, and Deadlands, and put them all into a shared universe.
I'd like to see Vampire the Masquerade actually brought over World of Darkness.
I think that would be pretty cool. You'd have to have a lot of like
angsty teenagers. Oh, sorry, what? Sorry.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna do that, I mean, it'd be kind of cool if we did the Lost Boys in Savage Worlds, wouldn't it?
Oh, I love the Lost Boys.
Yeah, I mean, +2 charisma for eating Chinese food. I mean,
that takes me back.
So,
oh, he's using peer pressure on you. Drink the wine, Michael. Oh my God, give me a persuasion roll. Oppose persuasions.
I think that would be it. There'd be a lot of, like, you talk about Vampire the Masquerade. There's a lot of like social conflict
Yeah.
And you can do that in Savage Worlds. It's just that people don't really use it that often. But yeah, you'd need to build a face character.
So I'm going to change the topic if everybody's okay with it.
Yes, please do.
You just mentioned something that's become near and dear to my heart, Jared, and it's the opposed role in Savage Worlds. And I've been toying with an idea of running an entire session where basically everything is an opposed role. And I talked about this with you and Dustin in the past, kind of offline, away from the show, is this idea that, if two characters meet in combat, it's not going to be your turn, their turn. You both make a fighting roll to see if you overcome the other one's toughness. No, it's one opposed fighting roll, and whoever rolled higher is the only one who hits this round.
Yeah.
This idea that, it doesn't matter who acted first. If you attack Dustin's character, you're both making a fighting roll. And if Dustin rolled higher than you, it doesn't matter that you attacked him. His attack this round is hitting you instead. Kind of a thing. And
That's interesting.
I think it would be a very interesting way to play, because Savage Worlds has a lot of these, this defense thing. You've got to roll a natural 4 to hit them in range combat, rather than it being opposed by agility, or roll above their toughness, roll above their parry. There's a lot of that is built into the core way the mechanic works, and then we immediately step away from it when we get to other things, where it's all these opposed rolls when you start getting into the powers and the monstrous abilities. I think it would just be interesting to kind of bring that full circle and just take Savage Worlds down this straight path of opposed rolls. And I think that the interesting aspect of it is it's that whole social dynamic at the table of who's spending the Benny when.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to roll first because you're the acting character. So how many bennies are you going to spend to set Dustin's target number higher? And then you know how many bennies he has sitting in front of him. So does that enter into how many you're going to throw away trying to set a high enough target number?
Well, we said this before too. You'll hear this come up a lot. And how a player I've got a player character interacting with an NPC, and he wants to detect whether or not he's lying. Okay. Give me you're going to make an opposed bonus roll against his persuasion because he's trying to convince you of something. Yeah, he won the persuasion roll. If he is lying, you can't detect it. Or, he didn't quite make it. You know what? The thing he said about that doesn't quite sound right.
Even if it's true, it doesn't sound right.
Right.
Those are always the hardest ones, is when they don't know they're lying. That's when it's impossible to actually tell.
Yep. Well, and you should be doing opposed stealth, stealth opposed by notice if you're trying to do sleight of hand stuff with stealth. I would argue, though, if you're going to try to do like a forgery, that's a persuasion roll. You make a persuasion roll about the forgery, and they make a notice roll to detect imperfections in it. It's really streamlined and simple, and you don't need a whole lot of anything in Savage Worlds. If you want to break it down that way, you just make it an opposed roll.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's a big stretch. There are obviously some core mechanics that kind of rely on the derived statistics, but I think you could have a lot of fun playing with Savage Worlds in that manner. And I know Clint not long ago had done kind of a mental exercise on the forums where he talked about, how would you make Savage Worlds an entirely player-facing system, where the players make all the dice rolls and the GM never picks a die up all night long. And he laid out a full set of conversion rules for doing that. I think that an opposed roll system would be an interesting direction to take it in as well. Just again, as more of a thought experiment, and just something I think you could have fun with for a night or two. I do honestly think, though, unfortunately, anything that is heavily reliant on opposed rolls plays a little slower. So I think long term it would fall apart.
Yeah. It's an interesting bit of pepper to put on top of that steak, but I don't know, it doesn't necessarily make the meal. Let's talk about Mel Primus's question. Dusty, you want to read that off since you posted it up?
Sure thing. that get the deer in the headlights look if the campaign is too open, but also complain about not having enough agency. Specifically, he's talking about players getting the deer in the headlights look.
So let's have a discussion about what is player agency. Let's talk about that. Simply put, players.
The
Let's
last
talk
10
about it
minutes
real
of the
quick.
show is the best place to start that conversation.
We're going to talk about it briefly. So, player agency means players have freedom of choice. They have free will. They don't get to bitch and moan about the consequences when they make their choices and say they don't have agency. So, if this is a situation where the players are going, I don't know. Okay, so it's an open world. This whole, and it's the other thing too. You right now, Mel, you're dealing with two complete clusterfucks of concepts in one sentence. The sheer fact that you're talking about a campaign world that's too open, that doesn't fucking exist for that exact same reason. Because if you go, okay, you're on your horses and we're on the plains, what would you like to do? They will look at you like, huh? You got to throw down some railroad tracks for them to react to, period.
At the very least, some terrain. You have to give them some,
something to interact with.
In the past is there's a difference between a sandbox where it's an empty box filled with sand and nothing else, and a theme park where there's a town over here, there's a cave over there, there's the big bad Thunderdome off in the distance, or what have you. It doesn't matter what toys you drop into your sandbox, you have to drop those in so the players have something to react to. As far as like the player who gets the deer in the headlights look, I think quite honestly, there's two reasons that this happens. One is what Jared just talked about. You've given them nothing to react to. You said you're in the desert on a horse with no name, and there's nothing around you but a flat horizon in all directions. What do? Well, you haven't given them any options at that point. The flip side, though, is the players who come from a game where they're given your options are A, follow the tracks to the left, B, follow the tracks to the right, or C, kneel on the tracks and wait to be hit by the plot train.
Yeah, well, when it comes to that, though, if they're complaining about the world being too open, give them what they want. Here's really the thing that happens at the end of the day as a GM. Sorry, but you have to do a little bit of what's the word? Pandering to your players. If they want fighty, and that's how they have fun, god damn it, give them fighty. Even if that's not what you're about, not what you care about, fine. Give them a bar fight. Give them a reason. Antagonize them with NPCs so they start a fist fight in a bar because that's why they went to the bar. That's what they want to do. Fine, let them do that. Don't saddle them with this responsibility of, hey, it's a wide open world, and you can do whatever you want, and I have no plot ideas. Let's play, because then you're gonna get the what? I don't know. But if they're complaining about player agency, you have to ask them how they feel that you violated their player agency, and if they go, well, you put us in a situation where, hey, you could have walked up and left. You could have turned around and walked out that door.
Yeah, it's your job. Agency. It's your job to put them in that situation. It's their job to determine how they react to that situation.
Right. Player agency is not dictating what their actions are or what their responses or reactions to things are. So if you're doing that, yeah, you're kind of violating their agency. If you're invalidating their choices, you're violating their agency.
Mel is very quick to point out that he doesn't have this problem. He's asking for us.
Okay.
So I gotta go on a little bit of a diatribe about the topic of agency. So there's two schools of philosophical thought: Hobbes and Locke. And Hobbes believed that we needed a ruler that he referred to as the Leviathan that would govern every single movement that we make, and it's the only way to keep us safe. And Locke, John Locke, some of you know him from the show Lost, stated that we bought into a society and that we agree to follow that person's rule. And I think that if you look at GM styles, you have the Leviathan GM that is like literally king of the railroad, and then you have the John Locke that's just like, okay, now you're all agreeing to be here, but I need you to go in this direction. Now there's a third guy, and his name is Rousseau, and he is the worst possible GM in history because he's like literally just says, do what you feel.
So you hear that, Gary? You're a Leviathan. Choo choo, motherfucker. Choo choo.
So, Mel, if you can in chat, give us a little bit of a background on this GM buddy of yours. What is their GM style?
No, he's saying like he hears this question come up and he wants us to discuss it. And honestly, it does come up quite a bit in the community. And people always talk about, you know, how do you run a game that's open enough to grant player agency while, you know, telling a story? And the simple answer is, you know, get out of your own fucking story,
right,
and just react to the players if that's what you want to do.
Get out of your way.
If you don't, if you want to tell the story that's already written in the module, then run that game and tell the players up front that that's the experience they're signing up for. Yeah. You know, you don't get to complain to the folks who run Six Flags Great America that when you got on Superman, you expected it to be bumper cars.
Right.
You got on Superman. You're going for the Superman roller coaster ride.
You agreed.
You don't get the bitch that it wasn't bumper cars at that point.
Yeah, you bought your ticket. Agreed. Yeah, you bought your ticket. You know what you're getting into. Yeah.
Pays your money, takes your chances.
Yeah. As long as you're not a bait and switch, I think the easiest answer to this is what we commonly say is GMs work in the problem department. So the easiest way to address this, to give them an open world with complete agency, is to go, you're walking down the street and out of the corner of your eye, don't make notice rolls, out of the corner of your eye, you see 3 men beating the crap out of an old woman. And then just sit back and don't say shit. Let the players tell you what they're going to do. They have complete agency to interact with that or ignore it. And if they ignore it, let it go. Don't try to have another old woman being beaten up by 2 hooligans around the corner because they didn't respond to the first one.
And if you want that middle of the road approach, really what you have to do as a GM is you have to develop the art of the hook. You are going to dangle plot hooks all session long. And the players are either going to buy in or they're going to bypass. And when they bypass, you just have to be ready to roll with that. But so therein lies the rub. If you want the middle of the road, you have to accept it comes with the problems of both sides.
Right. Well, and this is the situation too, right? So probably the best way to give players give them a sense of agency, which is an illusion. I'm going to say right now, player agency, total illusion. Because dice and rules. Don't tell me about your player agency. You don't have agency. You get to make choices about dice and rules. That's your agency. But that being said, know what's happening build a theme park. Know what's happening over at the Superman experience. Know what's happening over at the Funhouse. Know where the restrooms are. Know where the guard stations are, and have a general sense of what's happening in each one of those areas as far as a potential plot thread or seed. Plot seed's probably a better descriptor because it only grows if the players water it by interacting with it. So, but you may have independent plot threads. Let's say they don't come to the aid of the old woman. Then they're not hired by the guy who's looking for brave adventurers who stand up for what's right. So therefore they don't encounter the dragon necessarily. Or maybe they do encounter the dragon later on because they do something else in another scene that brings that in. I'm just saying, know kind of what the lay of the land is, who the key players are. Don't put a lot of thought into it beyond that. Cliff notes. And then literally just throw something at your players. You'll be amazed. Most role-playing guys understand we're here to role-play a game. So if the GM lays down a plot hook, pretty much everybody jumps on board because they realize they're there to play a game.
And sometimes they jump on board so hard that you weren't prepared for how deep they want that plot hook to go. It can become suddenly the focus of your entire campaign when it was supposed to be a sideline for one night, and it suddenly becomes like, that's Avalon on the hill that we must reach. You mean that place that I barely remember that I gave a name?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they decide that, it's your job to make it worthy of the Avalon on the hill the players have turned it into. That's how you grant them agency. They just decided that location is the premier thing. You now have to make it worthy of that expectation.
That's fair. Let's see. Anything else we want to talk about?
Not in the last 5 minutes. I do have another topic, but I'm not bringing it up tonight.
All right.
Is it because I'm turning into a pumpkin?
Well, I mean, we're all old men and we all need our beauty sleep.
It hasn't helped me.
I mean, look at Jared. He's actually losing color over time. That beard is more gray every Thursday night.
And more prodigious.
Soon he's going to start looking like me, just, as if the contrast was turned off.
What's going to be scary is when I shave the shit. That's what's going to be what's scarier than hell.
I would save that until you need to commit a crime.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I got to put a crime on my to-do list. God damn it, Dustin.
Jaywalking.
No, I'd have to go down for something more exciting like flashing. That's what I'd
Nice, Chris. Nice. Closing up a podcast with dad jokes.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll close it up. So until next time, this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Dustin, Dave, and Chris saying keep rolling, stay savage.